Thank you for joining us. Today's Thursday, February 8, 2018 for the TDC VCB meeting. If I could please have you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance for our great nation. Flag
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Cecil Pendergrass.
Here.
Renee Affordit.
Here.
John Cariosha.
Here.
Fran Myers. Here. Kevin Ruane.
Here.
Pamela Cronin. Tony Lappy.
Here.
Colleen DePasquale.
Here.
Robert Wells.
Here.
Bill Wachulis.
Here.
Brian Kramer.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all being here this morning. And at this time, we have approval for the January 11, 2018.
So moved.
Motion by Tony.
Second.
Second by Renee. Any other discussion on the minutes? Any objection? No objection. The motion carries for the minutes. And this time we'll call public comment. Any public to be heard at this time? Please come forward to the podium.
Good morning. My name is Jack Carver with the Florida RV Trade Association. Just reporting to Council on our very successful 33rd annual Fort Myers RV Show. We did about 11,000 people. Heavy traffic, weather, windy, a little rain on Sunday, maybe late in the day kind of kept people away. But nevertheless, we had strong sales, very much interest. We have a 7-county marketing program to expose the RV lifestyle to a whole variety of people, young and old, and we are seeing more younger people coming into to the event. However, right now our predominant market are the snowbirds. So nevertheless, we did talk about Lee County, Fort Myers, and of course the Civic Center, and it was a very successful event. Our next event will be in April, once again at the Lee County Sports Complex, and looking forward to an end-of-season event using another county facility. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Next speaker.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Beth Oliver. I'm the Director of Marketing for Offshore Sailing School. For those of you not familiar with us, we're privately owned by Lee County resident Stephen Doris Colgate. We're operating in our 54th consecutive year of teaching adults and families how to sail or sail better. 4 schools in Florida and 2 in the British Virgin Islands. But in the scheme of It's a Small World After All, I told Tam I had a surprise for her this morning, and I'd mentioned this to Brian before. In 2014, Offshore Sailing School celebrated its 50th anniversary, and to commemorate that, we worked closely with the VCB to develop some commemorative sails. Those sails were on 14 of our sailboats in New York Harbor. So imagine my surprise in January of this year, 3 years later. It's like the gift that keeps on giving. I went to a friend's house here, and they're graduates of Marist College in the Hudson River Valley. And so they said, oh, my gosh, we have something to show you. We got our annual calendar that's sent to us by the president of the college, and you'll really like August. Woohoo! Our commemorative sails with the logo of the beaches of Fort Myers, Sanibel, if you can see that here, with the beautiful dolphin that was done by the agency that the VCB works with, has gone out now to 50,000 plus people in their 2018 calendar. So this was really a wonderful surprise. I'll pass it around for the commissioners to see, but thank you very much. The other very surprising and wonderful thing about this is the individual who took the photograph. You'll see another famous picture beneath it. And at age 26, Ted Spiegel, the photographer for the calendar, now he is 83. His only 3 clients are Marist College, West Point, and the Hudson River Valley Trust. But when he was 26 in Seattle, he took a picture of just incoming President John F. Kennedy that became a commemorative U.S. postal stamp in February of 2017. So our sails and this beautiful area are in illustrious company for all time.
Thank you. Thanks for the great news. Any other public to be heard at this time? Close public comment. Municipalities to be heard? Judy's on the agenda. Thanks.
She is.
Good morning, Mr. Commissioner, members of the commission. My name is Judy Zimmerman. I'm the city manager of Sanibel. And I'm here really for one purpose today, and that is to say thank you to the TDC and to thank you to Lee County. I just want to share briefly with you, we always like to show you how we're using the investments you make in Sanibel out in our community, and we have two projects today that I believe we just completed this last month of January that enhance the visitor experience when they do come to our community. And these two projects are the boat ramp rehabilitation and the Heritage Trail installation projects. The boat ramp project was only possible to a grant we received from Lee County, not TDC, but from the Boating Improvement Fund. And then the Heritage Trail we received a grant from TDC for. I'd like to also say that both of these projects, like every project we do on Sanibel, we also believe is consistent with the Sanibel brand, and which I know is so important to this commission and used heavily in the marketing, but also at the same time still protect and are consistent with our environmentally friendly and our environmental protection approach that we take on Sanibel. So for the boat project, it started in July 5th, 2017. The project replaced a ramp that was originally constructed back in 1983. The total cost of the project was just over $250,000. Again, $137,000 of that came from the Lee County Boating Fund, and the remainder from the city's beach parking fees that we collect at the beach parks. What all was included was a total replacement of the deteriorated concrete ramp, modified the slopes. If you've ever been there where you had to wait when someone's vehicle slid into the bay, you would know why it was so important to change that. A new V-groove surface, which I'll show you, new dock walkways, and railing for safety. This is what the project looked like while it was under construction. Of course, this is what it looked like also when Hurricane Irma was forecasted to arrive. The project, our goal was to have it done a few months earlier than we did, but all of this equipment had to be demobilized and taken out of the entire path of the potential hurricane and then remobilized after the hurricane passed. This is what our finished project looks like if you go to launch today. This was the first kayak that went in January, and if you notice the license plates, they were from New York. I talked to them, they were from Rochester, and they were very happy to be here in January. The second boat to launch that day was a couple from Toronto, and they were happy with the new product, and they brought their boat all the way in tow with them from Toronto. And that's a vehicle with Canadian plates. I should have got that in the photo. It also has been surprisingly a location for fishing that people are enjoying it, and it's much more handicap accessible now for if you just want to get a good view of the causeway or, again, fishing. Here's the new V-groove surface, which, again, we haven't lost a vehicle since the new surfaces went in, which I can't say beforehand. Also, this has become quite a popular park. If you've ever been to the boat ramp in the past, you may know it was just a boat launch, and we've added over the last few years some other amenities. These were not part of the most recent package, but just to show you how this park and visitor location is enhanced. We have picnic areas with grills now at the boat ramp. We have connectivity to the shared use path system. This was funded by TDC in a previous project. This is our handicap accessible family restrooms that we have at the boat ramp. Our drinking fountains that we work real hard to keep clean and shiny. The second project, and I left you also a folder that has the map of the Heritage Trail here, and as well as a copy of the PowerPoint and an article that was recently in Florida Weekly on the cover about the Heritage Trail. This is a project we did receive a grant from your marketing group for, and we're very happy with that. So we received one of your mini grants for $6,282. The entire project was only $13,000, and one reason we were able to keep this project so inexpensive is we did all in-house labor for installation, design, etc. And we're very happy we've received some very favorable comments. The unveiling of this officially will be next month. So here's the city staff installing these 22 new interpretive panels, all about history themes all around the island. They're all accessible from the shared use path. We tried where possible to put them near an amenity like a bench that already exists. The first of the path signs that was unveiled was in commemoration of our island pioneers. And we have a family on the island that has lived on the island for over, we have several, but one of the families that have lived on the island for over 100 years is the Gavin Jordan family, and they are featured in the Pioneer marker. And so last year was their 100th anniversary of living continuously on the island, and they had a very large family reunion on island, and it was unveiled, and there was a very high participation, and they really enjoyed that. Their family, I think, being recognized, and very popular event, you can see from the crowd that attended. And part of it is a map that is in your folder, and that'll be available electronically as well as on an app. And again, just wanted to say thank you for investing in our community. And if you have any questions.
Any questions for Judy? Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other cities have you heard of this time? It's time to hear from Jeff Milkey, our sports director. I think the special truck's coming to Lee County today.
Good morning, Chairman, Council. This is going to be, I hope, a fairly brief sports report. I know it's a very long agenda today, but we do wanted to go over with you our last quarter of calendar year 2017, as well as our annual report for 2017. So in the packets, had as a handout is all of our monthly reports that list event by event. But up here is a quick summary of October. So first let me go to the bar chart. And you'll see that we were down some over the last 2 years. And we were sitting at 14,600 room nights, direct visitor spending of $7.2 million. That is primarily due to the fact that we are still dealing with the aftermath of Hurricane Irma. We were still didn't have, many of our sports facilities weren't back up and running yet. We were able to still host Perfect Game Worldwood Bat that happened the first weekend of October was actually the very first sports event we hosted after the hurricane. So we really tried to push hard to get this event in. This event typically is our largest single event of the year, and we ended up decreasing it by 62 teams, which represented a 25% decrease, simply because we didn't have the fields yet put back in place, and we didn't have the hotel inventory because so many aid workers were still in our community. But we still did also continue to expand our international effort. We had, in 2017, 6 national baseball or softball teams come to Lee County. So that's, we've gone from 1 to 2 to now 6 in a very short amount of time. So again, there is the trend line, and you can see that that really all represents the drop in the Perfect Game event. November, also you'll see that was down a little bit from the previous year. 22,800 room nights sold, $11.6 million of direct visitor spending. Roy Hobbs is our signature event that month, 13,600 room nights. There was a 25% drop in Senior Softball USA. It generated 4,200 room nights. The reason for that, they said, was partly fear that the hurricane, there were less people traveling down here during that time of year. It's still November. And we're also competing against a senior softball event in Vegas that happens 4 weeks earlier that now has 650 teams in it. So there's a significant pressure from this is a world event in Vegas that a lot of teams are starting to have to choose to go to Vegas, or they're going to come to Lee County to participate in our Winter Nationals. The other thing that we typically do is we go after a lot of sports business meetings. You all have heard that that's one of our strategies. Gary and Angel have done an amazing job in securing sports organizational conferences and conventions. And in 2017, we did not, that's a mistake. It should have said hosted USSSA in 2016. So that was on our room night chart. We hosted that in 2016, and then we did not have it back in 2017. So that was about a 2,500 room nights from that convention that just is cycling back in here. We have them back again in 2020. We did add a couple new events, Florida Grid League, which is kind of a weightlifting / extreme sports event. We hosted 2 of those this year, and then in November, and then we're starting a new AAU basketball partnership, which is really starting to flourish. So we go to December, and December is now starting to pick back up again. You'll notice that this is the best December we've ever had if you remove the years that we host the state senior games, which was 13 and 14, and then we hosted it years before. That senior games is when it goes all around the state, and it adds about 2,500 room nights during December, where seniors 55 and over who still like to play very competitive Olympic-style sports festival come into our town for about 10 days. And so we're trying to still get that back, but you remove the senior game years, this was our best December that we've ever had. Highlighted by certainly our friend John Naylor and his City of Palms Basketball Classic product. We had 4 youth soccer events in December, 2 Olympic development weekends, and 2 other youth programs. That one of them was a first-time event that came over from the east coast of Florida, and it was very successful. And then we had USA Softball had a Fall States qualifier as well. All right, so this gets to our annual highlight. We were, in 2016, 157,000 room nights, so we dropped down to 150. Still fairly flat, as you can see. You think about the fact that we canceled 7 events from Hurricane Irma. We did not have March come back, which was 7,000 room nights in itself. I think the most important and the thing we were happiest about was going into September when the hurricane hit. Even though we didn't have March in Lee County, we were 1,200 room nights ahead. So had the hurricane not hit, we would have certainly had an increase in our sports tourism over last year. So that's the good we're going to take out of it is that we were ahead going into September. And we did increase our annual events to 144. It was the most sporting events we've ever hosted in Lee County. The previous year we'd hosted, I think, 138. So we just keep adding new events. We keep finding times in our calendar and times in our facility schedules that we can add events here and there, and we continue to try to make a difference. You can kind of see where our sweet spot is starting to settle in with sports tourism. This is us maximizing the facilities and availability for the most part that we have available to us. Our Parks and Rec Department, as you well know, is one of the best Parks and Rec Departments in the country. They are not only dealing with our stresses and our pressures by adding new events every year to them, but our population continues to grow. And they continue to have pressures on citizens of Lee County trying to use the same spaces that we're wanting to put our sports tourism events on. So those are, I think that's just kind of a telling annual trend slide where you can kind of figure we're going to be somewhere between 150 and 160,000 hotel room nights on an annual basis for the most part, unless some big special event comes in and really increases that. I do want to say thank you to all of the team and partnerships that collaborated with us in 2017. Certainly, Parks and Recreation leadership is here. They are key to everything we do. And then we've really started to do some cool things with the Visitor and Convention Bureau and the Economic Development Office. And I think you're going to see our 3 organizations starting to do a lot more positive things together. You all know spring training's right around the corner. I think it's going to be a fantastic year. With both teams were in postseason play last year, and it's been a nice cold winter for everyone up there. So there's lots of reasons that people want to come down here. And then at probably the next report, which will probably be in May, I'll review January, February, March, but I do want to mention we had a first-time event in January, the U.S. Figure Skating Eastern Synchronized Skating Sectionals, and wow, it was an amazing event. We had 2,500 skaters come into Germain Arena over 5 days, 7,000 total visitors, filled this town up in a kind of a, we try not to bring too much stuff in here January, February, March because we're starting to go into season, but it really, really was impactful. And I know that I don't know if Tam's going to mention or not, but there was some talk about how hard it was to find hotel rooms in a couple weekends in January. And In one of those weekends, which was Martin Luther King weekend, we happened to have 7 amateur sports tournaments going on, and then the following weekend was a 7,000 visitor influx coming in for this figure skating event. So I will be excited to talk about that a little bit at our next monthly report. So that's it. Unless anybody has any questions, I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Jeff, for the update. Any questions for Jeff?
Awesome. Thank you.
Great job.
Thanks, Jeff.
Next, we'll have Tamara Puckett, the report of the Executive Director.
I'm going to get data overload today. This is a lot of information, but good information, and I know many of you always appreciate the opportunity to see that STAR report. So we're excited to have both Nicole and Jennifer. Oops, sorry. To have both Nicole and Jennifer here for us today. So let's just start with the bed tax report. This is collections from December of 2017, coming in at a little over $3.5 million, up 12.3%. And for the calendar year, that puts us 15.5% ahead. So we've had a very, very good first quarter. No doubt impacted by some of those folks in town for the crews and the insurance adjusters and such, but I think there's also some good news in there, and Nicole will be sharing that with you shortly. For the STAR report for December, occupancy came in at 73%, up 12.4%. ADR at 148.28, up 5.4%. And you see the RevPAR up 18.4% to 108.30. Passenger traffic at RSW up 3.9%, 873,494. And for the calendar year, another record-breaking year for RSW, 2.8% above 2016, coming in at 8.8 million. So really good news for the airport traffic as well. With that, I'm going to invite Nicole up to share with you an overview of our fourth quarter report and a little bit of the year-end numbers.
Thank you. And as Tam said, this morning I'm going to go over basically the fall season, which was October, November, December, that quarter, and then also tie in some of the year-end results that we have. So first, just we'll go through some seasonal highlights for the fall, look at the calendar year, a brief summary from the lodging industry, the data that lodging managers gave us when we interviewed them, and then a little outlook for the first quarter of 2018. So first, just a summary here. This is looking at your paid accommodations guests for the fall season. And as you can see, all these green arrows are wonderful. It's all great news for the fall. It was a great season here. Visitation was up 5.5% among your paid accommodations visitors. Expenditures were up 10%, a little over 10%. Available room nights up, occupied room nights up even more. Seeing a really significant increase in the occupancy rate between the fall 2016 season and the recent fall season, from 63.8 to 68.8. ADR stayed relatively flat during the fall season, and RevPAR was up. And as Tam mentioned, and it was something we saw a lot, particularly in October, a lot of the property managers telling us that they had a great October because of FEMA crews that were here, insurance adjusters, restoration crews that were working here. So that definitely buoyed October, but November and December were great as well. Looking at visitation for the fall season over the last 5 years, it continues to increase. If you look at the 5-year increase there from 2013 to 2017, it's up 9.8%. Among your paid accommodations visitors, it's up even more.
You're growing fall.
Looking at visitor expenditures also has shown a large rising trend over the past 5 years, up 21.5% from 2013 to 2017, looking at just the fall season. Now we look at the visitor origin of your fall visitors. And we had seen between 2013 and 2015 growth in international visitation. It had gone up from, you see 29% here, up to 38%. Then in 2016, that dipped down to about 30%, and we saw the dip again this fall season down to 26%. There's a quite significant drop there with Germany, 11% last fall to 8%. Definitely an impact from the loss of those Air Berlin flights this fall. Canada went up a bit to 9%. And the UK stayed about even for the fall season. And you'll see later we're going to look at the year-end highlights, also shows the same sort of trend as far as international visitation. But I just want to make sure you all understand that this is not just a Lee County problem. This is nationwide. They have data out right now for the first, I think, 7 months of 2017 that shows that international visitation to the U.S. overall has dropped 4% over last year. And when you look at just international visitation from Europe, it's even more significant, about 6%. So that is not something that's just specific to this area. Not that that makes it any better, but there are these. Now we look at domestic visitors and their origin. Not surprisingly, the Midwest bringing in about half of your visitors this fall season. Key markets from the Midwest include Detroit and Minneapolis, and then also Cleveland. The Northeast bringing in about 24% of your fall visitors and paid accommodations, and the key markets there being Boston and New York. And next we're going to look at some calendar year highlights at this point, from January to December of 2017. And as you'll see again, we have a bunch of green arrows here showing a good year overall. The numbers aren't as enormous and significant, I suppose, as the fall season, but considering that last winter of 2017 wasn't great here, and you factor that all in, the year as a whole was pretty good. Visitation being up 0.6%, so there was an increase there, and minimally you held steady there. Expenditures among your paid accommodations visitors up 3% over 2016. Available room nights, pretty flat, a little under 1%. Occupied room nights were up. So your occupancy rate overall, and this is across all types of properties and across the whole year, was up 2.4% from 2016 to 2017. ADR, we're showing a 0.3% drop, which is pretty flat, basically, year over year. And then RevPAR up 2.1%. And looking at visitation, that too is held steady. It's pretty even. Your paid accommodations visitation, as you can see, is up a little more. But looking over the past 5 years, you know, it's held steady. You've gone up some years, down a little bit other years. Visitor expenditures. What we saw this year was the highest we've seen over the last 5 years. So that's gone up almost 12% from 2013 to 2017. And here's where we look at that visitor origin again among paid accommodations guests, and this is for the entire calendar year. And you can see again that drop in international visitation here, 27% last year down to 21%. And again, a big part of that we see is Germany here, from 11% to 6%. Canada is up again from 6% to 8% when you look at the whole year. The UK down a little bit as well. But again, not just Lee County. So then we look at the domestic visitor origin, and much like the fall, the Midwest brings in almost half of your paid accommodations visitors. Chicago, Minneapolis showing up as the top markets there, and Cleveland as well. The Northeast markets around 25%, and New York and Boston being the largest ones there when you look at the whole year. Next, we're going to look at the lodging industry summary. And this just goes into the data that the lodging managers gave us when we were interviewing them about their available room nights, occupied room nights, and such. These have been, on the left side, you see here the fall season. On the right side, you see the calendar year results. And the important thing to note here is they've been on the rise. Available room nights continue to increase. Occupied room nights have also shown a steady increase over the last 5 years. Looking at occupancy rates, as we saw earlier, for the fall season, they've gone up 25% over the last 5 years, just looking at the 5. Obviously, a big jump there was this recent fall season, where it went from 63 to 68.8%. And for the calendar year, there's still a good increase. Year over year, 66 to 67.6. And over the last 5 years, almost a 12% increase there. ADR trends, this has also shown growth over the past 5 years for both the fall season and the full calendar year. When you're looking at 2016 to 2016, there were some increases, not huge, but it kind of holding steady pretty much with your average daily rate. RevPAR, when you combine the slight increase in ADR with the large increase in occupancy, RevPAR has grown quite significantly, 34% over the last 5 years for the fall season specifically, and then 26% for the calendar year. And lastly, we're just going to do a little outlook for the first quarter of 2018. Now, at the end of our survey with the lodging managers, we always ask them, let's look ahead a bit. Look at the next quarter. What are your reservations like compared to last year at this same time? And we actually asked them to look a little further out too, the next 2 or 3 quarters, but the upcoming quarter is what we're primarily looking at. And if you'll see here in 2017, so this was asking them what their reservations looked like for January, February, and March as compared to last January, February, and March. 44% of them said that their reservations were up already over last year. And then 37% said that they were about the same. So combined, this 80% of the properties said that their business for the next, and this was, we were interviewing them the first 2 weeks of January. So already they were saying their reservations for the next few months were either up or the same as last year. You look at last year, it was very different. If you look at the 2016 numbers, they were very pessimistic, and that was the first time, as you can see the trend here, that was the first time we'd seen such a dip, and we weren't quite sure what it is, but that's what they were telling us. Only 15% at that time said that reservations were up. We had 46% who said their reservations were down. And if you look back to last January, February, March, it wasn't that great of a season. So this ended up being a fairly accurate predictor from what they told us. So if that holds true, as we can only hope it will, then January, February, March should be looking good this year as well. And that is all I have.
Thank you.
Anyone have any questions? Yes.
The Canadian is kind of a surprise to me because of the dollar strength and the differentiation. I was surprised to see that jump up as much as it did.
Yeah. Well, we're honestly, the exchange rate, I feel anyway, I don't know this for certain, it's kind of bottomed out. I think, we're starting to see some fluctuations where it's moving back up, it's coming back down. I think the initial shock of that exchange rate coming down has kind of worn out on the Canadians. And we saw it in other clients we have, especially up closer to Canada, where the Canadian market is huge, and they had huge dips in 2014 and 2015 when that started happening, and now it's kind of stabilizing and returning, the Canadian market. So not too surprising that that's happening here as well.
And Tony, to add to that, good air service.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of seats. So, it makes an enormous difference on, how that performs for us, of course.
Yeah. I was actually sitting next to a gentleman from Toronto on the plane yesterday, and he comes down here frequently. He's a construction contractor, so he spends a few months here, a few months. But he was telling me he got down here for like $161 on his flight, and he can get direct flights out. He was telling me about how wonderful it was, and he would get, these passes for like 10 flights a year or something. Direct from Toronto to here, and it was about a 3.5-hour flight or a 3-hour flight. It's really easy for them to get here, yeah.
I certainly see a lot of cars with those plates on there.
I'm sure.
They have found us.
A long winter up there.
Yep, absolutely. Any other questions for Nicole? Thanks so much, Nicole.
You're welcome.
So just to kind of play a little bit on a couple of things Nicole pointed out to you. Remember Detroit came in #1 for the fall? Remember those TV ads we placed this fall? Detroit was one of those markets, and Detroit was previously last fall #10, and they came in #1 this year. So, we know it works, but it's nice when you see it work that quickly in those numbers. So I'm pretty excited about that. The markets that we advertised in, you saw really strong performance from. And Jeff mentioned about the hotel room, the limited number of hotel rooms we faced in early January, which is a little bit unusual. We always, during the height of season, activate a call system to reach out to the hotels. in case there are any passengers that are stranded at the airport, et cetera, who has rooms available. Usually we don't do that until right about this week for, when we kick off the Edison Festival events. It's typically when we get that big constraint. So to do that a month early, I think, is very good news about what kind of season we're having. And the other thing, Nicole said this, but I just want to emphasize it again. Most of the hoteliers, when they were reporting the cruise, they were reporting that for October. I think some of the movement we are seeing November and December is definitely growth in demand for the destination. So we'll see how that plays out. Now I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer, if that's okay, sir.
Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for having me here. I flew in from Nashville, Tennessee yesterday, and it was very pleasant to get on the airplane with 30-degree weather and arrive here in 80-degree weather. So great time to have a presentation, in my opinion. I'm going to overload you with just a little bit more data. With STR, we'll be talking about the overall U.S. hotel performance and then take it down to a Florida level and then more specifically into Lee County. All of our presentations are available on our digital media arm, which is hotelnewsnow.com. On there to our data dashboard and view all data presentations, so this will be uploaded onto that site. It's also a great reference point for all of our industry presentations. We have a ton of speakers at STR and do national and international presentations on a weekly basis. So if you ever wanted to log in and look at any presentations that have been done recently, able to see updated numbers all the time, including this one. So like I said, we're going to quickly go over the total U.S. review, look into Florida performance specifically, Lee County, and then look at some comparable county markets, and then finally look at new supply coming in, and then the forecast moving ahead. So for our total U.S. review, looking at December 2017, we just recently got our year-end data, and breaking record numbers. RevPAR was up 4.6%, occupancy 2.3%. We had the highest December room demand ever at 86 million rooms. Transient RevPAR was up 3.9%, and in-construction rooms declined again from last year at negative 3.7%. So I'm going to talk a lot more about the pipeline and in construction, but this decline in construction rooms we consider to be a positive thing at this point, considering where we were at this point last year. For the year as a total of 2017, it was a record year all around. We had more hotel rooms available than ever before. We sold more hotel rooms than ever before as a U.S. industry. More room revenue came in than ever before, and that brought our absolute occupancy, average daily rate, and RevPAR numbers in at record numbers. So it really was a banner year all around for 2017, and the metrics quite show it. Something to keep in mind, of course, as we look at the overall U.S. numbers. If we exclude the two states of Florida and Texas, of course, it weakens the overall U.S. results. Just because of Hurricane Irma and Hurricane Harvey, if we took out Florida and Texas from the total U.S. RevPAR for the month of December, we'd be looking at 2.4% as compared to 4.6%. So that hurt. Both of those hurricanes did have significant performance metrics changes for the fourth quarter overall. This chart shows, I love this one, it's basically a overview from the beginning of time, according to Randy Smith, our owner, or back to 1990, all the way up to present, of the interplay between supply and demand. You can easily see the demand percent change and the dips in our economy back in the early 90s, 91, 92. You see again at 2009-11, and the dip down in demand there at 4.7%, and then finally the housing crisis in 2008 and 2009. So very easy to see the three recessions, and you can see the supply percent change as well. Now we were getting very concerned in the early 2017, because as you can see, that red line and the blue line at the end of the chart were just about meeting, which means we were expecting supply to increase over demand percent change, and that has a bad effect on occupancy. However, earlier in the year, that was the case, but since demand has rebounded and grown quite significantly. So as the year ends, there's no longer that concern. It has, as you can see here, a great effect on our overall ADR percent change and positive occupancy. So did we miss the 2016 downturn? Looks like so, and smooth sailing ahead. Year-end numbers look good in that respect. Which if you take occupancy and ADR, you get your RevPAR change. And RevPAR growth, as you can see on a monthly basis with the green boxes, it's pretty erratic. It's up, it's down. There's a lot of seasonality. There's holiday shifts, Easter and the Jewish holidays. So if you look at it by month, it's erratic. But if you look at the red line, that's your 12-month moving average. And that shows an overall trend of steady RevPAR growth. That RevPAR growth is slower now. We're seeing that growth decline, but it's steady. It's a steady RevPAR growth, and we can see the tracking here overall back through 1990. Right now, we've had almost 8 consecutive years of RevPAR growth at 94 months. The previous long length was 111 months, so will we be able to beat that in 2 years from now? We'll be able to say we've hit new records on continuous RevPAR growth. We think so at STR. Numbers look strong and the economy looks strong, so we see that current 94 months surpassing the previous high, but to be determined. Now we're going to look here just for a few slides at our class review. So we track everything from luxury down to economy. With this, independent properties are slotted into these different classes by their ADR. So as you can see, the very healthy demand growth across all classes in the blue. Demand growth outpaced the supply growth in every category. Supply percent change, very much the upscale and upper mid-scale is where you see the significant growth there. And ADR growth drives that RevPAR growth, but occupancy growth is still contributing as well, particularly in the mid-scale and economy. And it makes sense, the ADR growth in mid-scale and economy, why that growth is so significant. It's much more difficult for a luxury or upper upscale to make a pricing hike increase than for a mid-scale or economy that's charging $69 a night to go to $71 or $72. So it's an easier growth there in the mid-scale and economy classes, but we're seeing growth of ADR and occupancy across all classes. Now we're going to look at segmentation for a couple of slides. STR tracks transient versus group segmentation. So transient is anything rooms reserved at rack rate, corporate negotiated, government rates, third-party websites, OTAs, et cetera. And then we track a group segment, so that's rooms sold simultaneously in blocks of 10 or more. So groups could be business, leisure, just whatever is booked in a block of 10 or more. We can see that the transient performance has been very healthy. Demand increases in the fourth quarter. The ADR growth has been slowing and is still very anemic at this point. So the demand change is up. We see that ADR creeping down, and that's something we're just pricing overall in the industry as a whole. That ADR lack of growth has been a bit of a stumbler. With group performance, demand continues to decline. You can see the calendar shifts there of Easter and the Jewish holidays create some rather erratic numbers in 2017. We're going to see those holiday shifts again come 2019, so it's very hard to, you see some spikes both up and down, given groups staying away from some of those holidays. And then the ADR growth is slowing month by month, as we see in the orange line. So the demand growth is transient driven, most certainly. You can see the transient rise over the past 6 years, and the group demand is just very flat overall, continuing with 2017. ADR lately, the transient ADR is really hardly moving at all, and I think Nicole alluded to that in her presentation. Transient up 23% over the past 6 years, and group 21%. So you see the slowing there as well as in regard to ADR. Now we're going to look at the statewide metrics for the state of Florida. Record-setting years and performances for Florida, just like the overall U.S. hotel industry, but even more so given some of the hurricane effects. We have supply up 1.4%, with demand up a very hefty 4.6%, occupancy 3.2% growth, and our average daily rate 2.6% growth, with our RevPAR growth at 5.9%. So with the U.S. RevPAR growth at 3%, Florida has almost doubled that from a growth standpoint in RevPAR. And then absolute numbers with your occupancy at almost 74, average daily rate almost 140, and RevPAR at a strong $102. So great for Florida overall. Here we can see just since January of 13, your supply, demand, and revenue percent changes. Looking at supply in the red line, that was pretty flat and went negative there in growth rate in 2014. And then we've been on a slight uptick for the last 3 years. So that is coming in now at 1.4%. Demand percent change, we dipped in January of 17, where supply growth was outpacing demand growth, and then the remainder of 2017 just went demand uptick very high. And then you can see your revenue percent change follows that demand line almost perfectly. At STR, we have a total of 164 markets in the U.S. 13 of those markets reside here in Florida, so I'm going to show a breakdown of some of the metrics for the 13 different markets. We do have about 122 sub-markets within that, and that's way too much data to show, but we can do it from a market level of the 13 markets. Just in general, as we look at our top 25 markets in the U.S., this shows your top 5 best and worst ADR percent change growth performers. So 3 of those markets, since they're in Florida, I included the slide. On the positive side, leader being Nashville, and influenced by bachelorette parties. Is always funny to say out loud, but we are just having booming years over and over again in Nashville. But coming in just after that is Orlando, ADR growth of 4.8%. And then we have Tampa and St. Petersburg, also ADR 4% growth. Hurricane Irma hangover, definitely contribution there. And then as we have the 5 worst performing of our top 25 markets, we see Miami there. And Miami's issue for quite some time now has been all of the new supply coming into the market. So they're still seeing the declines there in their overall numbers. As we look at the 13 Florida markets by RevPAR change, and you can see the division between occupancy growth versus ADR growth across all 13 markets. This had been last year at this time mainly ADR driven, but to a much greater extent. I would say 2/3 to 3/4 of the numbers were ADR growth driven, but we can see now this year occupancy is having just as much influence in some of these markets. With Orlando, it's about 50-50, same with Melbourne, so it's equal amounts of occupancy growth and ADR growth. Florida Central occupancy growth actually outweighs the ADR growth, and then you can see throughout the rest of the markets, and strong ADR and healthy occupancy. So RevPAR growth over the year in all 13 markets, up in general. Now we're going to look specifically at Lee County performance. I know Nicole alluded to a bunch of the performance numbers as well, so some of this will be a repeat, just showing STR's figures. So for total 2017, room supply coming in at 1% increase. There hadn't been much new supply opening here over the past 3-4 years as I could look back, but in 2017, 2 hotels opened up, so that led to a 1% increase in supply. Room demand up 4%, so the numbers, as you'll see in the next slides, very, very much impacted by Hurricane Irma there with the demand increase. Occupancy just at 72%, and that's a 3% increase for occupancy. Average daily rate, just about a 1% increase at $151, and RevPAR, 4% increase, which leads to room revenue at a 5% growth increase. These numbers are all very positive, and after coming off of a kind of down year in 2016, 2017 wasn't tracking very well to start, but the end of the year was a banner fourth quarter, and that really helped push those year-end metrics all up. As we can see, over the course of the last 5 years, like I said, the supply percent change was actually negative growth there for a couple of years as a 12-month moving average, and then we can see a little bit of positive growth there in 2016, and finally ending here in 2017 with 1% increase in supply change. Demand, on the other hand, demand's been very strong in this market typically. As you look back from 2013, 15, you see that decline in 2016. We were going negative at the end of 16 and into 17, and then that demand rate just shot on up throughout the fourth quarter, coming in at 4% overall. The ADR growth is slowing, but at a steady rate. That's that blue line there. So you can see back from 2013, so some nice strong rises, and then we can see the downtick from 2016 and into 17. At the beginning of 17, that went just below into the negative, and then popped back up and ended strong there. Occupancy percent change follows a similar trajectory, fell a little bit harder than the ADR percent change, but rebounded once again so very well in the fourth quarter that it brought the overall year results up very nicely. This chart is just going to show your monthly occupancy rates, absolute, for the year of 2017 by month, with the year-over-year percent change numbers there in the middle. So, the year started with negative occupancy growth. January -4. We're showing first quarter negative numbers, and that was kind of the case mainly due to your increase in supply of adding 2 new hotels to the market. That does have an impact, but as we can see for fourth quarter, October up almost 23%, November up 14%, and December up 12.4%. So all of those, slight shifts were very much just rebounded overall with your fourth quarter dramatic shifts. So we're going to look here at the transient versus group occupancy trends, going back to 2012. The transient your numbers kind of mirror the total U.S. Transient occupancy has grown, but at a very slow pace. So there's still growth there. Growth is always good, but it's been at a fairly flat growth rate. And the group, kind of the same thing. There's been growth, but it's been a very slow and almost flat growth rate. As we look at the ADR trends, that is also kind of mirroring the total U.S. as far as transient. 2015, 16, and 17, there's growth there, but we don't see that ADR pricing power that STR expected to see of the industry. The group growth rate, definitely bigger jumps for Lee County going back to 2012. Kind of just barely over 2016, you saw a little bit of growth, but very close to the total U.S. and mirroring that. And as we look into some of your comparative markets from a county perspective, we're going to see some changes there in the breakdown with regard to supply and demand growth. Demand growth is outpacing supply growth across all counties, and almost all of these are positive numbers. Demand growth across countywide, year total for 2017 has been extremely strong. We look at Lee County and we see that 4% growth, and that's right there with some of those other counties. Supply growth, 1% is great for having a couple negative ones, but as you look at Sarasota County with supply growth at 4.5 and Miami-Dade with supply growth at 3.2, even with that pretty significant increase in supply growth, their demand growth is outpacing it. So that's always what we like to see when we're looking at occupancy. You see the last column is just the state of Florida as a whole for comparison purposes, and state of Florida as a whole, demand growth 4.6, so like we said earlier, high across, and supply growth at 1.4. So Lee County is very much mirroring the state of Florida. We can see the healthy occupancy growth in the blue charts all across the board. Occupancy is up across all of these different counties. Collier County with the largest growth at 5.7, Lee County coming in at 3.0, and once again, that's very close to the state of Florida at 3.2. And then we've got our ADR growth, which is growth across almost all of the market, all of the counties, but that ADR growth, it's just not as high as we expected to see for an industry, given that the demand is so high, the rooms are very full, and the demand is so great. What better time than now to charge those extra ADR rates? So we'll see what's to come, but that has been an area of concern. RevPAR growth overall in most Florida markets is exceeding the U.S. average of 3%. You can see the clear domination in Florida that is just exceeding that U.S. average, and it makes sense given some of the fourth quarter results and overall the healthy state in general. We're going to talk about the pipeline. So STR tracks everything from in construction. So in construction means it's vertical construction, nothing subground like a parking lot or structure. So in vertical construction has begun for that category. We also track final planning. So this means construction will begin in the next 12 months. And planning means that construction will begin in more than 13 months. So there's a contract out there. All three of these categories lead to under contract. So we get all this, and we have a team at STR that makes up our pipeline department. So we get corporate feed chains from all of our branded properties that let us know of their plans, plus press releases and teams scouring news articles, and help always from the local CVBs and DMOs to let us know. Always helps that as well. But that's how we put together our pipeline numbers. For the total U.S., this is the first decline in construction since the recovery. 1 month doesn't make a trend, but now for 3 months running, we can see a trend that the in construction rooms is down, negative 3.7%. We consider this a positive at STR. It was pretty much the reverse at this time last year, where percent change was up in the 20% and 30%, and it just was boding very strongly for a lot of supply and overbuilding. But you can see the pullback now, which is great for the industry overall. It means that lenders are being a little bit more conservative in their lending, and the strength of the industry now will be a little easier to manage. Final planning still at a positive 3.5%, and planning at a 16% increase. So under contract brings us a total of 5%, and that's a nice place to be for supply. Limited service is still the name of the game. Like we've been saying for a couple of years now, we're not building ballrooms anymore. You're seeing that limited service
properties. Those are the main ones that are being built, and that will probably remain the same moving forward. Unaffiliated, you see here at the end, that just means either a brand hasn't been declared, it could be an independent, or they just haven't chosen a flag yet. So is what the unaffiliated means. For the total state of Florida, the pipeline, we show 109 projects in construction, final planning 153, planning 154, so total projects in the under contract is 416. The top three markets of Miami and Tampa and Orlando comprise the majority of this. The top 25 markets in general for the total U.S. have, about 50% of that new supply coming in. So you really see that impacting those large markets quite a bit more than average. And for Lee County, increases to supply to come. We don't show anything currently in construction in the market. Final planning, we show four projects listed, which would be 600 rooms, and planning 4 projects listed, which would be another 380. So total under contract, 8 potential properties with 980 rooms. Looking at the 4 final planning projects, this is just in a list of total number of rooms. The biggest one being the Autograph Collection downtown. That would be 248 rooms, and we show an open date of December 2019. Next, the Holiday Inn with 148 rooms, open date of March 2019. Fairfield Inn and Suites, 114 rooms, third quarter 2019, and then the Staybridge Suites, another 90 rooms in May of 2019. So if all 4 of these final planning projects open in 2019 as anticipated, that'll bring another 600 rooms into the market, which is about a 5% increase to your existing supply. That will certainly have an impact in numbers for forecasting into 2019, and that's something we'll just continue to track as far as open dates and expectations. Which, bringing all of this data together, leads us to our forecasting. Just for the U.S. overall, some notable calendar shifts that do impact our performance data and our expectations. The Easter shift, Election Day, you get some impact from Halloween, and then there's some notable market level comps, always a change in Super Bowl location, San Francisco, their convention center finally reopening, Washington, D.C., that's going to be a big change given the inauguration and the Women's March last year, and then of course Hurricane Harvey, Hurricane Irma, and the October and all of Q4 for 2017. So some key factors going into 2018, as the economy goes, so goes the hotel industry. In general, the hotel industry is very dependent on the GDP and the state of our economy, which right now is quite strong. That's what led to the great demand. We will keep an eye on interest rate levels and the weakening dollar, always something to pay attention to as we move forward. Moderating new construction levels, we see that as a great thing. That helps with KPIs overall. The construction levels are moderate. And that demand growth should really compensate for what's going to be tough third and fourth quarter comps, given the hurricanes and the very high metrics set for 2017. Rate growth will continue, but we don't anticipate it to be impressive. It's been growth, but like we said, now when occupancy growth is so high and demand growth is so high, that seems like the perfect right equation for rate growth to really strengthen, and it will continue, but we just don't expect it to be impressive given what we've seen thus far in 2017. And then last but least, you can't foresee a black swan event, so we won't even try. So for the 2018 forecast, we see demand outpacing supply, 2.3% to 2% growth, which of course keeps for a positive occupancy growth of 3.3%, just steady there above zero. ADR growth coming in at 2.4%, and RevPAR at 2.7%. So all numbers strong. 2019 forecast, just about the same, just a little bit less across all of those numbers, but a very similar trajectory for the total UDUIs going into 18 and 19. So we do see that RevPAR growth streak breaking the previous record back in the 90s. For Lee County forecast, for the countywide, looking at a negative occupancy percent change, negative 2.5. That basically is driven by the such high numbers set with the fourth quarter in 2017. It's going to be a drop in 2018. That's just a natural impact, and that's where we see that having a change on the overall occupancy. ADR growth, we anticipate that should be strong, 2.6%, making RevPAR growth flat. So certainly, at this time last year when I looked at the forecast that Allie presented, and it was projecting that your numbers exceeded where our projections were. So this one coming in, you never know what can happen with the market, but we try to just do a forecast given trends for the past 10, 20 years, new supply coming into the market dynamics, and so we're looking at flat RevPAR growth, but ADR growth is where you can really make up that negative occupancy given the hurricane results. Which brings me to the conclusion. Any questions?
Great, thank you, Jennifer. Any questions? A lot of information, but
A lot of information. I will be around for questions later if needed, and like I said, you'll be able to download this presentation if you want as well. Thank you very much.
thank you. Next business will be Lucy Maldonado, BCB.
Good morning, Lucy Maldonado, Fiscal Manager with the Visitor and Convention Bureau. This is the first quarter budget report. An asterisk towards the advertising line item. That's due to an increase in our budget of $825,000. That is due to the post-Hurricane Irma marketing and Eurowings Air Service development. In addition, we received a $150,000 BP grant, which the check was received yesterday. Woohoo! And basically, it's a 20% overall spent for this first quarter. All in all, you'll notice like the advertising and professional services, a lot of those invoices or expenses won't be received until the second and third quarter. But I'm here if you have any questions. Short and sweet.
All
right.
Need a motion? So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Any other discussion? Any objection? Motion carried. Thank you. So we may have a count.
I don't really have anything, except we do have an exciting thing going on at the factory. We've got the Clydesdales are going to be at the factory on February 23rd, which also happens to be my husband's 79th birthday. And probably his first day out since his hospital visit. So come see the Clydesdales and us, and let's have a great season.
You have to shove it. I have nothing, thank you.
Renee?
Nothing today, thank you.
Fran?
Listen to the airport in front of you.
And I just want to touch on real quick, I had the opportunity the other night, I got invited to the Island Inn on Sanibel and see the first hotel built in Sanibel the last 38 years. And Mayor Wayne was there with the council, and thank you for all their support out there on Sanibel. So it was nice to see a new venue come onto the island, and it was a beautiful, beautiful evening and a beautiful, beautiful location. So another addition to all the rooms we have here. Thank you, Mayor, for the hospitality, and congratulations to Island Inn out there. Molly?
As a hotelier, just taking the information in, my big takeaways were we're not charging enough as a county. There's either two reasons for that. Either we're not driving the rate or we have a condition issue. So, I mean, if I was a hotelier, I'd be looking at our rates. So, The other part that makes me a little nervous is Mr. Milky, we're doing 150, 160,000 sport groups, and that inventory comes in. It's going to be a challenge for the non-beach hotels. So, 19, 20, we may want to start looking at now what do we want to do for action plans to help give more funding to Jeff to help get more sports groups in here. Because it's going to be an issue down the road. So, my 2 cents.
Can I go back? Where's that Holiday Inn going to be? Do we know? It's in the pipeline?
Up by Pine Ridge Road.
Really?
Right next to- It's only slated for 90 rooms, so I was really surprised to see with the 148.
Here, where was it at?
Pardon me?
Where's it at? The location?
Right off of Pine Ridge Road, right beside the Hampton Inn,
Okay.
going towards Fort Myers Beach. Right by the new parking facility that was built for the beach.
Colleen, maybe you can update us. Do you hear anything about the downtown hotel? Because I hear one thing, but I read something else in the news. I hear it's not coming in. I hear they're breaking ground, but so.
I heard they're breaking ground, that's all. I've not
That's
heard-
last year, so that's what I'm trying to find out. So.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that.
Okay.
I just have two things. One is a reminder, on February 22nd will be the FRLA's monthly luncheon held at the Embassy Suites in Estero at 12 noon. And then the FRLA will be doing their first inaugural Golf Classic fundraiser to raise funds for the FRLA, and it really bridges FRLA's high school Pro Start and culinary program with the FGCU School of Hospitality. So it will fundraise for FRLA, for the Pro Start program for the high school kids, and for FGCU School of Hospitality. So it's really a fundraiser that will help the industry and develop our future leaders. So I have flyers here if there's anybody that's interested in being able to either sponsor or come out and golf. When you golfers, it's going to be at the Raptor Bay Golf Club, which is over at the Hyatt. It'll be up May 18th. Will be the date for it. So please come out and support us if you can, and get some vendors to help support as well.
Great, thank you. Mayor?
Two things. First and foremost, Mr. Chairman and Tom, thanks for coming out to the island. Island was a really nice event. Chris has been a great partner. We have a redevelopment meeting that the city managers put together where we sit down and kind of talk about some of the challenges we might have to make sure we have it as efficient and go through a process that's very streamlined. And it really worked well. Obviously, those rooms are unbelievable. I certainly stayed there personally during the hurricane, and we didn't have power. Just the job he's done with that is really a credit to him and his staff and all they do. So it's a really nice addition. Since he's taken over, he's put over $10 million in that facility. So if you haven't seen it, it's an unbelievable facility. I know Tony's got a great place, but I'm just not trying to plug, just saying something. To say the least, your places are great. Secondarily, we had a council meeting on Tuesday, and for everyone to know, Jim Jennings was our longest serving city council member, 14 years, and he has actually retired or decided to leave office. He was no longer a resident in Sanibel, so he could no longer hold that seat. Council got to appoint Holly Smith, Councilwoman Smith, right behind me, and it was for an interim period of time, and nobody ran against her, so she's our newest council person. With that in mind, council has made a unanimous decision to actually have this seat for Sanibel actually be given to Holly Smith. She's a hotelier. She owns the Suburban. She owns Holly Inn Express in Cape Coral. The good news is certainly she brings a skill set to you all that I don't certainly have. But in the same token, I'm going to sit in the chair back there and certainly continue to do. This is a great group. I enjoyed the first 6 years I sat here. Certainly enjoyed the conversations, the camaraderie we all have. So I might not sit here, but I'll certainly sit there and certainly make sure we do what's best for Lee County. I appreciate all that you've done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Can I just introduce her? Holly Smith? She's our newest councilman person. Thank you.
We look forward to working with her. I'm sure she'll be a great addition to your council.
Absolutely is.
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
Tony?
I know Rob and I are glad to see that the wind has finally calmed down because it was a little bit breezy for the boaters and all that, but I think, all in all, we're going to have a great first quarter.
Well, thank you, and everybody be safe, and we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting.
Give a
traffic was a nightmare yesterday.
Really?
I should have written it down, right? No, you told me in my office, right next to Planet Fitness.
Keep buying at dinner at your hotel.
Yeah,